Welcome back to Reason for Truth. Truth comes first, reasons last. You know we're always constantly learning. If we stop learning, stop teaching, at least stop teaching. Well, that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to share with you a clip from teaching at Calvary, a class at an adult ALG, and I hope you enjoy it. We're going to be going through the book of Joshua, so I'll be putting more of these up. So hang on, let's get started.
Joshua. So Tim last week did an overview of the book of Joshua, and this week we're going to pick up. We're going to be doing a chapter at a time. This chapter 1 has 18 verses to it, and so the whole title of this talk is Joshua's Commission and Command. And by the way, that I put the little square thing. If anybody's here, Jennifer, this little squiggly thing will get you all the resources. It will get you all kinds of cool resources, videos and audios. And you can see me later if you have any interest. But the book of Joshua is about really the conquest of Canaan, really the whole promised land. But Canaan was a big part of that. Funny, there was a Muslim guy I used to witness to from Palestine. I talk about him sometimes. He says, I'm from the Canaanites. And I said, I know you're from the Canaanites. I know you are. But from the initial invasion across the Jordan to the final division of the land, that was Joshua's calling. You remember, Joshua picks up where from Deuteronomy. Joshua literally just connects right to it on the timeline, and he's picking up where Moses left off. So, like most military histories, this book does focus around Joshua, and Joshua had a big. I'm thinking, what would it be like to? Stepping into Moses' feet would be like stepping into Billy Graham's shoes. You can't really do it. The Lord calls you and He equips you to do the job, but to do it in the way that He's called you to. Yet, in this, it's interesting here, this book actually focuses with God as the commander. And I always think of Saul. I think of Saul in the sense that the Israelites wanted a human king. And isn't that our problem? Every time we get a human king, even in America, when we had the best God-ordained government in the history of the world, do we still seek a human king? I thought that was interesting.
Some people don't.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
We've got a lot of people right now who don't want it.
Right. Right.
We can settle that.
People in Chicago and Portland, they don't want a king at all. They want to be the king. I love it. So the book repeatedly speaks about the Israelite victories and really due to God's intervention, okay? And this is if you said what is the one thing that stands out about the book of Joshua is a dependence on God for your victories. And the older I get, the more that I see that, I thought about this when I was young, I'm full of, pea and vinegar, and I got energy, and I just don't listen. This is why my class is unique, Jennifer. My wife's shaking her head. But that's what it is. You're full of energy, and there's no way else to express it. Maybe there's a Jewish Yiddish word that could do it, but the English language has no words for it. But, chutzpah. I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking that. Chutzpah, yeah, that's close as you can get the chutzpah. And Jen, since you're new here, I called my mom once, because my mom's, we grew up in an Italian Jewish neighborhood, and I said, Mom, she goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm disheveled, which means you're kind of, she goes, no, Steve, you have a shimmel. I said, what does beshimmel mean? She goes, you're crazy. I said, oh. I said, you know what, I am beshimmeled, but I'm also disheveled today. So when you guys come to the party, I'm going to put my mom on the phone, and she'll love talking with you guys. She's turning 90 in April. So the book repeatedly emphasizes the Israelites' victories. But my point is that I think when God has exhausted me. I cannot give any more than I give. And what's amazing, He's doing the most. And that's just like everything's backwards the way He operates. And that is so true with what Dr. Monroe said in the book of Joshua. It's just the way it is. We often, I speak for myself, get in our own way. And that's just amazing to me. But I think that's the way life goes, right? They always say you should be born at like 100 and then go back to the womb. Makes sense. But let's look at here. I broke this down to two simple points. The commission to God, of God to Joshua 1-9, and then 10-18 is the command. And there's a lot of pieces there to that. So, and then we're going to have a bunch of questions that we can wrestle through at the end. Because of his unbelief in striking the stone. I think that hurts. That really does. Moses went through a lot, and he made a mistake, and man, he just lost the prize, man. And I think that was a sad thing. God in turn prepared Joshua, in God's I have to think there's more to it. God had a plan to carry on Moses, and there's only way, how often do we see a leader that kind of leaves and the place falls apart? I think he prepared Joshua to pick up where Moses left off, but Joshua's chronologically picks up where Deuteronomy left off. So while Joshua needed to grow into the job, Deuteronomy 34:9 hints that Joshua would do just that. Okay, now Joshua, the son of Nun, was full of the spirit of wisdom. That's why God chose him, and that's why God gave him wisdom. For Moses had laid his hands on him, so the children of Israel needed him and did as the Lord, as had commanded Moses. The Lord had commanded Moses. I think the secret to Christianity is being obedient to him, exactly what John said today. Because that's why God uses the lowly. He makes greatness out of littleness. But the problem with using greatness is that it gets self-absorbed. It's just all of us. That's our nature of all of our lives. Joshua opens up verses 1 to 4. Does anybody want to read that? Anybody want to read out loud? And you get a star on your name tag if you do that. Yes, go ahead, honey.
After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses of Aid, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people get ready to cross the Jordan River into the land I am about to give them, to the Israelites. I will give you every place where you set your foot. As I promised Moses, your territory will extend from the desert to Lebanon, and from the great river, the Euphrates, all the Hittite country to the great sea on the west.
Thank you. Do you now see, I'm an applications guy big time. Now do you see all this free Palestine poopy? I mean, it really is. Where they, to the sea, what is it? To the mountains, to the river, to the sea? That's you see, this is nothing is new. To say that we are not living in a spiritual war battle of the century, you could say this is due to a lot of things. They're misled, they bought into social media. This is a spiritual battle that we live in. Joshua standing with Israel on the verge of the Jordan. I like this word. It says he's gazing westward. I think that's so cool. Zach and my son and I share this thing where we just like to hang out and just be. He's got that. I think he gets a lot of great traits from his mother. That's why he does well in school. I did well in school because of his mother, but Zach does too. When I told you, when I went to seminary, Heather, she doesn't remember that. I remember I was walking in, I can remember I was in the closet getting something out in the closet in the kitchen, the cupboard, and she goes, I don't want to see any bees. She goes, if you get one, that's all right, but I don't want to see any bees. I'm like, okay. When I grew up, my mom's like, go out and play, be home in the time for dinner. We'll see, So he's asking himself, he's gazing, who would be in charge and by what authority? I mean, Joshua's new. I mean, imagine all of a sudden you're promoted to a 5-star general, right? By whose authority? Reminds me of Moses going before the Pharaoh and say, who do I say sent me? I am. How do you argue with that? That's my favorite name for the Lord, by the way. Joshua's contemplating what and where Israel ties to the past and the directions for the future. He's all of a sudden assuming, oh my gosh, where have we been and where are we going? And I'm in charge of this thing. So the first verse answers those questions, linking the final episodes of Deuteronomy right into Joshua. The vocabulary indicates the exalted status of Moses. See, Joshua knew that he was VP and that he was being asked to be the president. You see, here's the deal. Moses was called in the Bible the servant of the Lord, while Joshua was Moses' servant. But you see what's happening. God removes Moses and he's going to be the servant of the Lord to carry on. That's a big deal. Remember the final epitaph on Joshua's life, servant of Yahweh, Joshua 24:29. It's beautiful to see the Bible is just harmonious. I've got 4 Qurans because I studied Islam in seminary as my emphasis. And you open the Quran, it's gobbledygook. It really is. It's nice little sayings, besides the one that say they're going to cut our fingers and stuff off. Besides that, it has some really nice sayings, but there's nothing that connects. There's no plot to anything. It's just like saying, Jenny has glasses on. Heather's wearing a blue jeans jacket, and it's good to wear a blue jeans jacket in the fall because, and you'll keep warm. Nothing connects it supernaturally because it's not a supernatural book. So that epitaph would have been vindicated through 24 chapters of the book of Joshua, and that's what we're going to study. God's encouragement, I think it's great. Joshua is, he's so loving and he's so commanding at the same time. Verses 2-9, God is very encouraging. I think we often think of God in the Old Testament as, you do this, you die. But here he's encouraging. God's speech is encouraging Joshua. It's warm-hearted, tender speech. We forget God is tender, but he's firm. So assuring Joshua of his care, his protection, and his presence. This is huge. And I think this is huge for us, urging him to do one thing. He asked him to do one thing: obey me. Obey me. I'm good at that because my mom raised me that way. Obey me. Don't disobey me. It was a model of God's graciously encouraging his servants as he does for you and I today. I'll always throw application because Bible without application is, to me, is just a good exercise in learning history, right? Or learning about God's Word. We want to make sure we live it out. True success in life, I want to just point this out, cannot occur without knowing doing the will of God. I'm writing a book on purpose. Hopefully it'll be out in the spring or in the fall if it gets delayed. But this is true. I put it in the book. I'm like, all right, I want to appeal to non-Christians, but the bottom line is I can't deny this. I had to put it in the book separately. Is that we can't, if you want, you can achieve success, right? You can build a house, you can do whatever, get a job, get married. Outside of God's will and his purpose and his provision, you're really not going to achieve the greatness of that marriage, of that job, and all those other things. So the land, God, I'm giving you, Joshua 1-2. So the land of Canaan was the first promise to Abraham. Remember, hundreds of years before in Genesis 12:7 and 13:14. So this is not a new thing. Remember, they're going back to reclaim what's theirs. So while God allowed the Israelites to be slaves in a foreign land, 15:13, God used that, and I'll show you. He also used that in teaching the Israelites a little bit about how to run your government. Okay, the promise of bringing back their own land. Genesis 15:16. Excuse me. When he says "you," by the way, the word in Hebrew is not singular; it's plural. Hence, when you read that, don't think he's talking to just Joshua. He is talking to Joshua, but he's talking to all Israelites, all God's people. It's you all. In the South, that'd be y'all. Matter of fact, I learned something. My friends corrected me on that. They told me how to say Appalachia. And they showed me how you spell y'all. I had a Y-A, it's a Y, and then apostrophe and A-L-L, right? All right. So I'm learning. I'm slow, but I'm learning. I'm getting there. Hence, the land was given to all of Israel. That's the significance. So Israel had a legal title to the land, and they still do. So this Palestinian thing, by the way, most of you all probably know this, but the whole argument over Palestine is not an issue of Palestine. All these other crazy Oman and Iran, they use that as that's their staging ground for war against Israel. They don't want war in their country, so that's just basically kind of like a Ukraine. It's very similar to where it's like we're at war with Russia, right? But we fight it in Ukraine. Well, they call it a proxy war. Same thing is going on here. They had a legal title. So this puts to bed the evil Palestinian mantra we just talked about. Arch, would you read this? Joshua 1:4-6.
You bet. I'm sorry, I have a New King James Version here.
Well, you can. Okay, you can. It's on the thing too.
Bear with me.
That's a good version.
All right. From the wilderness and this Lebanon as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, to the great sea toward the going down of the sun shall be your territory. No man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life, as I was with Moses. So I will be with you. I will not leave you or forsake you. Be strong and of good courage, for this people you shall provide as an inheritance the land which I swore to their fathers to give them.
This is how I know Israel will never be wiped off the map, because God swore it. And if God swore it, I'm going to take that to the bank. All right? Verse 4 gives a description of the borders. I was going to put a map. I didn't have time to put a map up. But verse 5 makes this great promise, I will be with you. Exodus 3:12 and Joshua 1:9 and 37. If God is with you, everything you read in the Bible and everything we read about, we see, and I think quite often in our lives, when God is with us, when we're obedient to Him, He's with us. It doesn't mean everything works out perfectly the way we think it will, but it works out according to God's perfect plan. But if He calls us to do something, it will be successful in the way that He sees success. Okay? The command to be strong and of good courage was for Joshua's encouragement. And God repeated these words 3 times. And I always tell you, if anybody's been in the class long enough, my mom used to say 3 times. I was like, why does she do that? I think she got that from Peter. Remember? Peter, do you love me? Peter, do you love me? Peter, do you love me? Yeah, my mom would say that. Do you understand? And she said the 3rd time strike, and I'd get a smack in the head. And I learned, though. I got a dent in my head, but I learned. So she says, my mom says to me, was I too hard? I think I yelled too much. I said, no, Ma, you didn't yell too much. That was good for me. I needed to be yelled at. The southern boundaries, the wilderness is identified as the southern limit, which is understood to be the arid region stretching from the Negev desert down to the Red Sea. It's funny because I AI'd this, okay, and it just said Egypt. I'm like, so you got to really be careful. I don't use AI I use old sources. I told my kids, never, Heather, if something happens to me, don't ever get rid of my library. It was 30 years of the old stuff's better than the new stuff when it comes to books. The northern boundary was Lebanon. Lebanon is mentioned as the northern boundary, a reference to the Lebanon mountain range. And then the eastern boundary was the boundary defined by the Euphrates River. That's what Free Palestine is talking about. And then the western boundary, right, is the Mediterranean to the sea, called the Great Sea. So there you go. Anybody want to read Joshua 1:7-9?
I'll read it.
Oh, please. Thank you, Jennifer.
Am I reading from the screen here?
Yeah, whatever you feel comfortable.
Okay. Only be strong and very courageous, being careful to do according to all the law that Moses, my servant, commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may have good success wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened, and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go.
Thank you. I think we could put that up right on my computer and read that every day. It would do me a world of good. By the way, out of all the great things in here, one thing that stands out is when my wife was a regional manager at a biotech company, one of 5 that ran the country. And when she came home, my CPA out of Northern Virginia, he was in Fairfax, he kept saying, Steve, I can't see it economically. We lost 3/4 of our income. And when I started my business, and I started business, then I started my ministry, and then he said, Steve, I've got one piece of advice for you. That and I said, what is it? He goes, don't look to the left and don't look to the right. Never heard that before. He goes, just look straight forward or you're not going to make it. If you just run as hard as you can, you're going to make it. And by God's grace, I'd like to tell you that I'm that good, but somehow God has held me up and provided for us for 14 years, 15 years now. But thank you.
May I interject?
Yes, sure.
I dated this person my first year of college, and he was a Marine who worked at the White House in Camp David. So I got to go to a Christmas party at the White House, and I got to go into Camp David.
Oh.
I know. And when I went in, they said, don't look to the right or don't look to the left. And I didn't understand.
What was something on the walls that you're not supposed to
I've
look?
never told anybody that.
Well, you can share it today if you like.
So whatever you just said means they were saying something biblically. I thought they were telling me don't look around.
Yeah, that's interesting. That is a great. I wonder why. Now making me wonder. I'm going to be wondering why.
And your comment about 3 times?
Yes.
That's knocking 3 times on the
ceiling of heaven. And that's in the Department of Defense, you're supposed to interview somebody at least 3 times before you work with
Interesting.
them to make sure that you feel comfortable with
Okay.
them. So you've said a couple of very profound things.
I appreciate that. Tell my wife there.
Well, you know, Steve.
It's on recording. This is great. Yeah.
Piggyback on what you just said.
Yes.
That's being careful.
Yes.
You know, in our distracted world, at least this is true for me, I'm not always as careful as I should be. And we get in a hurry, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But I think.
I know exactly what you mean.
Strong and courageous. I've always focused on those. I have it embroidered in several things. I
Yes.
love that verse. But being careful to do all according to the law of the Lord. We can't be too careful.
And that entails slowing down a little bit, doesn't it?
I was just just saying earlier that my older brother had a saying that he lived by: love people, trust God.
That's true. That is the singular. Yeah, that's a singular thing I learned in starting a ministry. As soon as I started my own ministry, like officially by the law, I got uninvited to like 5 speaking engagements, and I was like baffled by it. And there's one thing when people tell you to trust me, it's that I've learned how to trust the right people, but you expect better for the body of Christ. You understand when you get bit by the world, but when you're in the Christian circles, but there are times where you have to trust. And when you do trust, sometimes you get bit. And then I'm learning how to handle that. Yes, my wife better, because before I was like, forget it. But anyways, no, you're right. You're right. And it's trusting and being careful. I think there's wisdom in your steps, right? So, you know, some people have said, I had one guy said, he started his own ministry. He said, if Jesus doesn't provide full funding by August 30th, I'm done. I'm like, really? Yeah, and he did. He handed out and then he started a real estate business. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying, you shouldn't parse it that way. If you're really testing God, that's just kind of crazy. God's timing's not your timing. Anyways, appreciate that for both of you. Great insight. Whoops. So, verse 7 says, be very courageous. I like you just said that. Speaking to Joshua's spiritual state and degree of obedience to the Lord more than a battle. It's more than a battle cry. See, we tend to think that he's speaking in battle terms. Really what he's talking about is he's talking about put all your focus in God, your trust. So that battle, that courageous is to meditate, verse 8 and 9, means much more than just contemplation. But rather one should reflect on God's word in a thoughtful way, appropriating its truths personally and in applying them to life. So God had to speak to Joshua first. Then, when Tim and I get up to teach, we have to hear from God first. then we pass that on, right? But if we don't hear from him first, then you hear from us. And that's not good, because we didn't write the Bible. The command. Now you're in the verses 1:10 to 18. Okay, we've heard the commission. Now we're going to look at the command. Anybody want to catch verse 10 and 11?
I'll do it.
Thank you, Tim.
And Joshua commanded the officers of the people, pass through the midst of the camp and command the people, prepare your provisions, for within 3 days you are to pass over this Jordan to go in to take possession of the land that the Lord your God has given you to possess.
All right, I'm going to get ahead of myself. I think I memorized. I don't remember verbatim, so I used some cues to help me. Little secret. But Joshua commanded the officers. It's interesting. These officers emulated what they had learned in Israel. Egypt. The Egyptian military did the same thing, and they learned from them. Okay, but when he's talking, also prepare your provisions. He's not talking about weapons. He's talking specifically to food. And I thought about that. That's specifically food. Why is that important? Because I think today we think, we can bring helicopters, planes, trains. There's 1,000. I think if they want to get food, they got to bring like a donkey. People have to carry them. So food was real important, okay? Verse 10, Joshua's officers were to go into the camp and have the people prepare their provisions. This is a real important thing, because if you mess that up, there's no like flying in support. You can die. The officers, again, were officials who helped organize Israel's affairs. You can see this is very organized. And provisions referred to food, as I said, okay, to cross the Jordan. Anybody want to get Joshua 1:12-15? I love this because God's saying, listen, you're going to go into some tough times. This is not going to be easy, but I'm going to give you the victory. I just need you to be what? Obedient to me. And then he tells them, what's the golden ring at the end? You get to live in peace. Isn't that true? You know, the older you get, I think about my grandparents. They were born in 1910 and 1909. So they lived through the Great Depression, World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam. Now, you know, if they were alive today, you would have seen the 2009 crash. I mean, you know, and then 8/9 crash, and now we'll get dealing with that. That's why when people feel it's the end of the world, as long as mankind is running the world and we're not obedient like Joshua was in application, we're going to end up, the cycle just repeats itself. If we obeyed the Lord, then I think we would go longer. I think one of the longest, I think China had a long dynasty, and certainly the Italians. I mean, they went 1,000, 1,500 years, you know, compared to our couple hundred, 300 years. So very interesting. It all comes down to how you seek the Lord and how you implement that before you get corrupted out. Joshua 1:12-15, Joshua is reminded that the 2.5 East Jordanian tribes, remember he speaks to these 2.5 tribes, Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh, of the obligation to promise to Moses to participate in the conquest of Canaan. So you had to ask the half-brother, listen, you're going to do what you said you're going to do. That promise, remember, was made to Moses. And they answered Joshua, all that you have commanded us we will do, and wherever you send us we will go. Just as we obeyed Moses in all things, so we will obey you. Only may the Lord our God be with you as he was with Moses. Whoever rebels against your commandment and disobeys your words, whatever you command him, shall be put to death. That's strong. Only be strong and courageous. That's a theme here. I could have just called the whole theme of chapter 1, be strong and courageous, right? And so they were like, okay, we're all in, but they also knew, and they did. And by the way, they were successful, and they went back and lived in peace, exactly what they said. They kept their word, which that's a sermon in of itself. Don't even get me started. Today, people do not keep their word, which is horrible in many cases, even if it costs you something. Remember those days from the past? All right, no more rabbit trails. And those tribes reiterated that they would fight alongside the other tribes to conquer the land west of the Jordan River and would only return to their own lands east after the conquest was complete. And just as we obeyed Moses all things, so will we obey you. They did that. They were successful. To summarize, Joshua 1-18 summarizes God's commission to Joshua. This is where the book of Joshua is launched. He's now the head of the military, the head of the government. To Joshua to lead the Israelites into the promised land after the death of Moses, promising him victory if he obeys him, okay? And to be strong and courageous and obedient to the law and to God. So God instructs Joshua to prepare the people to cross the Jordan. He reminds the Transjordanian tribes to their promise to fight with the others, that's the half tribe. And the people pledge their loyalty to Joshua, vowing to obey him as they did Moses. This is a real pinnacle. I was a recruiter for 15 years, and what we found out is that 80% of the time, you don't get transitional services. You don't help the person transition to their job. Most people don't do well in the new job. And 80% of the time is because nobody did any kind of transitional. So I did my own kind of transitional, and I would, they told me this, they promised, I didn't, and then I would go back, and a lot of times I saved the guy's job and the company from losing a good employee just over something foolish that he or she didn't want to say when we put him in the job, okay? Time for questions. Whoops, hey, cheating over here. Who succeeded Moses as a leader of Israel? This is an easy one, but I'll take anybody who wants to throw it on out there. Joshua. There you go, thank you, Joshua. All right, that was the easy one. We're just warming you up. I do Duolingo, and sometimes they give you these really easy lessons. I think it's to build your confidence up. Then they send these really hard ones at you, and you're like, what does that mean? What was the land God promised to Israelites? I thought this was supposed to come in two pieces. That was one. every place in which the sole of their foot would tread, extending from the wilderness to Lebanon, to the Euphrates River, to the great sea in the west. Okay? All right, now we're back on track. I couldn't get that slide to work right. What was Joshua commanded to be?
Strong and courageous.
There you go. Thank you.
Steve?
Yes, sir.
Just, we were talking about that, love that, be strong and courageous. I've always thought of that in the context of having to fight these tribes
Yeah.
and all that. But as a former leader, I think it also applies to leading the Jews, the Israelites.
I agree.
I mean, leading that people required courage.
It probably had as much fighting inward than it was outward, right?
That had to be a tremendous challenge.
I totally agree with you. Hey, I didn't say it, but they're stiff-necked people. That's the biblical term for them. And so they are. Probably one of the reasons why they survived all these years that God brought them, right? It's like Dr. Geisler. People say, oh, he was unmovable. He was this. That goes to one lady I remember came up to me years ago, goes, he's storming Norman. She didn't like him. I said he had his flaws, but the reason why he was a great man was because he was unmovable. Culture never moved the man. Was he perfect? No. Did he make some errors? Yeah, but for the most part, he was unmovable. So yes, great point. Thank you, Arch. So what did God promise he would never do? Anybody want to take a guess on that one? Thank you. Yes. Ladies are killing it over here. Leave Joshua or forsake him. What did Joshua need to be careful to do?
Obey Christ, obey God.
Obey God. Yeah, it's amazing. That's exactly in line with Dr. Moreau said today. To do everything written in the book of the law and to obey them. And remember, not turn to the left or to the right. That's hard. We have so many distractions in our world today, especially with these phone things that are in our pocket. Good night, what a distraction. What was to be in Joshua's lips was he to meditate on? Anybody want to take a stab at that one? God's commands, yeah. What God had called him to do, the book of the law and the night, so that he would be careful to do everything written in it. God's commands, and that's what the Old Testament was. Who was to help prepare the people to cross the Jordan?
Officers.
Yeah, the officers, yep. That's what they were both, yep, the officers, the people. You guys, I'm impressed. What was the promise of rest for the Transjordan tribes? Here's a hard one. To help their brothers cross the Jordan until the Lord gave them rest. Yeah, you're right. In the promised land. That's right.
Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode, Reason for Truth podcast. We'll be picking up on more episodes going through the book of Joshua. It's an exciting book. It's an interesting book. So I hope you learn from it. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we appreciate you being with us. So knock out that subscribe button. Boom! Concio Sinistro. Italian left hook, since I'm using the left hook. If I use the right hook, I'd give the right hook. God's blessings. We'll see you at the next episode. You know what I say. This is your Reason for Truth for today.